jaloux, moi je m'en fous de toutes ces choses qui me disent c'est juste des jaloux. Jamais comblé, toujours à critiquer, c'est jaloux. Des jaloux. C'est tous des jaloux. T'es pas un vrai mec, tu fais trop la meuf. Tu sembles un peu fake, oui, on sent que tu bluffes. Derrière ton sourire, ça se voit qu'il n'y a rien. J'aimerais te voir mourir, tu mérites pas d'être bien. Oh, oh. Et qu'il me les lance, ces mots qui blessent. Jamais je ne baisserai la tête. Je reste fort et je me répète, encaisse les coups, c'est tous des jaloux. Jaloux, moi je m'en fous de toutes ces choses qui me disent c'est juste des jaloux. Jamais comblé, toujours à critiquer, c'est jaloux. Des jaloux. J'aime pas trop ta voix, tu chantes un peu faux, t'y arriveras pas, va faire tes vidéos. Et de toute façon, si les gens t'aiment bien, c'est pas parce que t'es bon, t'as une week, t'es gay. Fin. Et qu'il me les lance, ces mots qui blessent. Jamais je ne baisserai la tête. Je reste fort et je me répète, encaisse les coups, c'est tous des jaloux. Jaloux, moi je m'en fous de toutes ces choses qui me disent c'est juste des jaloux. Jamais comblé, toujours à critiquer, c'est jaloux. Des jaloux. Jaloux, moi je m'en fous de toutes ces choses qui me disent c'est juste des jaloux. Jamais comblé, toujours à critiquer, c'est jaloux. Des jaloux. C'est tous des jaloux. T'es pas un vrai mec, tu fais trop la meuf. Tu sembles un peu fake, oui, on sent que tu bluffes. Derrière ton sourire, ça se voit qu'il n'y a rien. J'aimerais te voir mourir, tu mérites pas d'être bien. Oh, oh. Et qu'il me les lance, ces mots qui blessent. Jamais je ne baisserai la tête. Je reste fort et je me répète, encaisse les coups, c'est tous des jaloux. Jaloux, moi je m'en fous de toutes ces choses qui me disent c'est juste des jaloux. Jamais comblé, toujours à critiquer, c'est jaloux. Des jaloux. J'aime pas trop ta voix, tu chantes un peu faux, t'y Jamais je ne baisserai la tête. Je reste fort et je me répète. Encaisse les coups, c'est tous des jaloux. Jaloux, 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 jaloux. Moi je m'en fous de toutes ces choses qui me disent c'est juste des jaloux. Jamais comblé, toujours à critiquer, c'est jaloux. Des jaloux. Jaloux, jaloux, jaloux. Jaloux, jaloux, jaloux. Jaloux, jaloux, jaloux. C'est tous des jaloux. Jaloux, 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 jaloux. Moi je m'en fous de toutes ces choses qui me disent c'est juste des jaloux. Jamais comblé, toujours à critiquer, c'est jaloux. Des jaloux. C'est tous des jaloux. Jaloux, 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 T'es pas un vrai mec, tu fais trop la meuf. Tu sembles un peu fake, oui, on sent que tu bluffes. Derrière ton sourire, ça se voit qu'il n'y a rien. J'aimerais te voir mourir, tu mérites pas d'être bien. Oh, oh. Et qu'il me les lance, ces mots qui blessent. Jamais je ne baisserai la tête. Je reste fort et je me répète. Encaisse les coups, c'est tous des jaloux. Jaloux, 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 jaloux. Moi je m'en fous de toutes ces choses qui me disent c'est juste des jaloux. Jamais comblé, toujours à critiquer, c'est jaloux. Des jaloux. J'aime pas trop ta voix, tu chantes un peu faux. T'y arriveras pas, va faire tes vidéos. Et de toute façon, si les gens t'aiment bien, c'est pas parce que t'es bon, t'as une wig, t'es gay. Fin. Et qu'il me les lance, ces mots qui blessent. Jamais je ne baisserai la tête. Je reste fort et je me répète. Encaisse les coups, c'est tous des jaloux. Jaloux, 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 jaloux. Moi je m'en fous de toutes ces choses qui me disent c'est juste des jaloux. Jamais comblé, toujours à critiquer, c'est jaloux. Des jaloux. Jaloux, jaloux, jaloux. Jaloux, jaloux, jaloux. Jaloux, jaloux, jaloux. C'est tous des jaloux. Jaloux, 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 jaloux. Moi je m'en fous de toutes ces choses qui me disent c'est juste des jaloux. Jamais comblé, toujours à critiquer, c'est jaloux. Des jaloux. C'est tous des jaloux. Jaloux, 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 jaloux. T'es pas un vrai mec, tu fais trop la meuf. Tu sembles semble un peu fake, oui, on sent que tu bluffes. Derrière ton sourire, ça se voit qu'il n'y a rien. J'aimerais te voir mourir, tu mérites pas d'être bien. Oh, oh. Et qu'il me les lance, ces mots qui blessent. Jamais je ne baisserai la tête. Je reste fort et je me répète. Encaisse les coups, c'est tous des jaloux. Jaloux, 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 jaloux. Moi je m'en fous de toutes ces choses qui me disent c'est juste des jaloux. Jamais comblé, toujours à critiquer, c'est jaloux. Des jaloux. J'aime pas trop ta voix, tu chantes un peu faux. T'y arriveras pas, va faire tes vidéos. Et de toute façon, si les gens t'aiment bien, c'est pas parce que t'es bon, t'as une week, t'es gay. Fin. Et qu'il me les lance, ces mots qui blessent. Jamais je ne baisserai la tête. Je reste fort et je me répète. Encaisse les coups, c'est tous des jaloux. Jaloux, 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 jaloux. Moi je m'en fous de toutes ces choses qui me disent c'est juste des jaloux. Jamais comblé, toujours à critiquer, c'est jaloux. Des jaloux. Jaloux, jaloux, jaloux. Jaloux, jaloux, jaloux.
And welcome to Oakdale High School's 2022 Veterans Day celebration. Claire and I would like to thank our veterans for attending today's celebration and most importantly for serving our nation. We are delighted that Dr. Craig Sheets, Executive Vice President of Mount St. Mary's University, Dr. Cheryl Dyson, Superintendent of Schools, Mr. Brad Young, President of the Board of Education, Mr. David Bass, and Ms. Karen Yoho, Board of Education, as well as our veterans could attend. At this time, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the Oakdale High School Marching Band playing our national anthem. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
National Cemetery. This site on the hillside overlooking the Potomac River in the city of Washington, D.C., became the focal point of reverence for America's veterans. Similar ceremonies have occurred earlier in England and in France, where an unknown soldier was buried in each nation's highest place of honor, Westminster Abbey and the Arc de Triomphe. These memorial gestures took place on November 11th, giving universal recognition to the end of World War I at 11 a.m., November 11, 1918, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. The day became known as Armistice Day. In 1926, Armistice Day officially received its name through a congressional resolution. It became a national holiday in 1938 by a congressional act. The idealistic hope have been realized that the World War I was the war to end all wars. November 11th might still be called Armistice Day. However, less than 4 years after this holiday was proclaimed, war broke out in Europe. 16.5 million Americans took part in World War II. 407,000 of them died in service, more than 200,000 in battle. Veterans Day was the first day celebrated as Veterans Day in Birmingham, Alabama in 1947. Raymond Weeks, a World War II veteran, organized National Veterans Day on November 11th. In 1954, Congress passed a bill and President Eisenhower signed it, November 11th as Veterans Day. Currently, there are over 24 million veterans who have served in the United States Armed Forces and who have returned to civilian life in our society. Today, we thank and honor those who have served honorably in the military and in wartime or peacetime. Veterans Day is intended to thank living veterans for their service, to acknowledge that their contributions to our national security are appreciated, and to underscore the fact that who have all served, not just those who have died, but who have sacrificed and done their duty.
In this light, we would like to thank and recognize our veterans. We will play the Armed Forces medley. We ask that veterans stand when their branch song is played. United States Army. States Marine Corps. United States Navy. The United States Air Force. The United States Coast Guard. Today, we have veterans, present and past, who have served in every decade since World War II. We ask that all of our veterans stand at this time so we can recognize you collectively for your service. In addition, we recognize our faculty and staff who have served, as well as our growing number of alumni who are serving or have committed to serve. Thank you to all of our veterans, past and present, who have served our nation for the past 75 years. All veterans, please rise to be recognized. Today, we are honored to have Dr. Craig Sheets, Executive Vice President of Mount St. Mary's University, with us to deliver our keynote address. Dr. Craig Sheets is a retired U.S. Army colonel whose 28-year military career encompassed both military intelligence and higher education. Dr. Sheets earned his Bachelor of Science degree in Geophysics from Millersville University. He holds a Master of Science degree in Geophysics from New Mexico Institute of Mining and Technology, a Master of Science degree in Applied Physics from the Naval Postgraduate School, and a doctorate in Applied Physics from the Colorado School of Mines. As an Army Intelligence officer, Dr. Sheets served at Fort Huachuca, Arizona, Fort Wainwright, Alaska, Fort Gordon, Georgia, and other overseas deployments. In his most recent deployment, he served as Chief Advisor to the National Military Academy of Afghanistan. Dr. Sheets taught physics at the United States Military Academy. He also served as the Vice Dean of Operations at West Point. Since retiring from active duty, Dr. Sheets has served as Dean of the Mount School of Natural Science and Mathematics. He was named Executive Vice President in January 2022. In addition, Dr. Sheets continues to teach physics classes. During the summer of 2022, Dr. Sheets bicycled from coast to coast, covering 14 states and 3,800 miles in 8 weeks to raise over $60,000 for the School of Natural Science and Mathematics. Dr. Sheets' wife, Lori Sheets, is the coordinator of computing education at the Mount. Their son, Craig, is a captain and a Black Hawk pilot in the United States Army, finishing his master's at Carnegie Mellon in artificial intelligence. Their daughter, Kayla, is a PhD candidate at Johns Hopkins studying biochemistry. Dr. Sheets' talk today is entitled, Living Out Our Gratitude. We are pleased to welcome Dr. Craig Sheets.
Well, good morning, and thank you so much for that kind introduction, and thank you for Dr. Scoder for inviting me to this. It is, it's actually emotional to see this crowd for me because I just don't think there are many communities that are doing this the way that you are. So before I get started, I just want to thank you deeply from the bottom of my heart because I just think this is fantastic. And a special thank you to for all of you for gathering today to honor American service members past and present. To me, there's no greater honor than spending over 20 years in the Army, except for being able to share moments like these with people like you who give purpose to the concept of service. It is a true privilege to be here, and I deeply appreciate the opportunity. We heard a little bit at the intro about the history of Veterans Day, which I think is interesting, and I'd like to share a few things that I suspect we all know, and a few things that perhaps some of us didn't know. As we heard, although the World War I officially ended on June 28, 1919, when the Treaty of Versailles was signed, the fighting actually ended about 7 months prior on the infamous 11th hour, 11th day, 11th month in 1918 that we heard about earlier. And then in 1938, we became Armistice Day. And we know that that eventually became Veterans Day, but the journey to this special day has a few interesting facts. Interesting fact number one, just 1 year after making Armistice Day an official holiday in 1938, Nazi Germany invaded Poland, shattering that tenuous peace and starkly contradicting the notion that armistice marked the conclusion of the war to end all wars. So this is where the origins of Veterans Day got its first societal pushback. Time magazine actually wrote in November 1940, quote, "To many Americans, the events of the last 15 months have made the armistice seem less important and less worthy of a national holiday," end quote. So consequently, a small group of Americans lobbied to have 11 November instead deemed Mayflower Day, in celebration of the anniversary of the Mayflower Compact, which took place also on November 11th, but in 1620. They argued that since this compact established the governing rules for the Plymouth colony and formed the cornerstone of the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights, it was a far more appropriate reason to celebrate. I agree that it was an appropriate reason to celebrate, but I think we would all agree that we're glad that didn't take hold. Interesting fact number two, fast forward to 1968, when Congress passed the Uniform Monday Holiday Act. Not this kind of uniform, but uniform meaning standard. This legislation moved many holidays to always occur on a Monday. It affected Memorial Day, Labor Day, Veterans Day. And the rationale, believe it or not, was to create 3-day weekends to stimulate the economy. When the act became effective in 1971, Veterans Day moved. It became the fourth Monday of October and stayed that way for a few years. But in 1975, President Gerald Ford led the charge to change it back to 11 November. And he stressed that even though the scope of the recognition is rightly extended to veterans of all wars, the historical significance of that date in our nation's history was worth preserving. So in 78, it was back to 11 November, and as we've heard, that's where it has stayed since. Now, interesting fact number 3, I think, is the most important for us to consider today, and it's what I'd like to spend the rest of my time on this morning, and that is there is no apostrophe in Veterans Day. Now, it seems subtle, perhaps, but it's intentional, and in my view, it's deeply meaningful. This is not a day that belongs to veterans, but rather a day that is about veterans, but belongs to all Americans. A day to honor our veterans through collective national reflection on why our veterans have fought and what they fought for. I really like a quote that's on the wall at the entryway of Memorial Gymnasium at Mount St. Mary's, where our teams practice and our ROTC offices are located. The quote is from G.K. Chesterton, a late 19th century, early 20th century writer, philosopher, and theologian. The quote reads, "The true soldier fights not because he hates what is in front of him, but because he loves what is behind him." For today's American fighting forces, we can proudly change this quote to, "The true soldier fights not because he or she hates what is in front of them, but because they love what is behind them." And what is behind them is you. It's us. It's our way of life and our freedoms. You don't have to wear the cloth of any of our defense organizations to play a vital role in preserving our freedom and the freedom of generations to come. I've had many occasions where friends and colleagues and sometimes complete strangers confided in me that they really weren't sure what to say to veterans on Veterans Day. They worried that "thank you for your service" seemed cliche and risked sounding perfunctory. My advice in such cases is that thanking a veteran for their service is never perfunctory, and we should do it every chance we get, as you are today. But the best way to express gratitude, in my view, to a veteran is to make good on the freedoms that they have fought for and that we are so blessed to have. So what does that mean in today's day and age? Make good on our freedoms. To me, it's about the choices we make. I'll never forget the impact of coaches and teachers they have on all of us. I had one in particular, a coach who told us players, "You are free to make your own decisions, but you are not free from the consequences of those decisions." This was his clever way of saying that in order to thrive in our freedom, we must hold ourselves accountable for our choices. In a free nation, one can choose whether to demean those with whom they disagree or to be respectful in their dialogue. In a free nation, one can choose whether to deflect responsibility or to bear responsibility. And in a free nation, one can choose to accept mediocrity or to strive for excellence. So you see those 3 phrases that form the foundation of Oakdale's mission: be respectful, bear responsibility, and strive for excellence, aren't just window dressing. They represent a means by which we can all serve this land that is ultimately protected by fewer than 1% of the population at any given time. I think I speak for many who served when I say that there is no higher honor for a veteran than to see the wonderful fruit that freedom bears in this great nation when we collectively decide to thrive in our freedom rather than just survive in our freedom. I've said it proudly many times and will say it many more. We are blessed to live in the greatest nation on earth. I've always felt this to be the case, but I can tell you that this sentiment was firmly cemented last summer when, as you heard, my wife and I had the wonderful privilege and opportunity to cycle from coast to coast. Our route took us off the beaten path, and our pace was such that we could not only take in the beauty and majesty of this wonderful land, but also enjoy the people we encountered along the way. An unhurried event. This was not America as portrayed on the news or on Instagram. Rather, it was people who make up the bedrock of our country. All races, all colors, all ages, all backgrounds. They inspired us, they supported us, and they gave us hope at a time when it's too easy to view things through a lens where hope seems distant. And in fact, in one particular instance, in a small town in Missouri, they not only provided hope an inspiration for me. They provided water when it was 102 degrees and I ran out. But that designation of the greatest nation on earth does not come easy. In fact, it comes with immense sacrifice, unyielding principle, and relentless determination. You see many examples of that right here in this auditorium with our honored veteran guests. I'm humbled to be in your presence. They are the fewer than 1% who stepped forward and said, this is worth fighting for, and I'm going to do it. What I find incredibly profound is that when members of the military swear their oath, it is not to a person, not to a king or a queen or a prime minister or a president. It's to an ideal. It's to a concept of freedom and dignity and respect and opportunity. In a Veterans Day speech many years ago, President John F. Kennedy said it perfectly with, quote, as we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them, unquote. Be respectful, bear responsibility, and strive for excellence. So I thank you all again for joining us today and for giving me the opportunity to be in your presence. And thank you for what you do and for the decisions you make to leverage for good the freedoms that these incredible veterans have fought so bravely to secure. God bless all the men and women who have served our nation in uniform. I am honored to represent them today. And God bless all who stand behind them and represent the collective good that I think is so worthy of fighting for. Thank you so much.
At this time, Caroline Patras, Suhani Tandon, and Josh Townsend will sing God Bless America.
While Veterans Day honors all of those who have served, today we cannot forget those who are missing in action or died in defense of our nation. If you look to the right-hand side of the stage, you will see a small table set for one.
This table is our way of acknowledging members of the proud profession of arms who are missing from our midst. Those who were killed in action, prisoners of war, and those who are listed missing in action. We call them brother and sisters. They are unable to be with us this morning, so remember them through the symbols at this table.
The tablecloth is white, symbolizing the purity of their intentions to respond to their country's call to arms. The single rose in the vase reminds us of those families and loved ones of our comrades in arms who have fallen.
The red ribbon tied so prominently on the vase is reminiscent of the red ribbon worn upon the lapel and breast of thousands who bear witness to their underlying determination to demand a proper accounting for our missing.
A slice of lemon is on the bread plate to remind us of their bitter fate. The salt is symbolic of the tears, theirs and ours.
The glass is inverted. They cannot toast with us this night. The chair is empty. They are not here.
Remember, all of you have served with them and called them comrades, who depended upon their might and aid and relied upon them, for they have not forgotten you.
At this time, Dr. Ed Schroeder would like to make some brief remarks.
I apologize for that, but the food just arrived for the veterans, so logistics. I would like to thank Dr. Sheets for his keynote address today and to thank our veterans for their service. I'm going to turn to Robert Frost's poem London Walls for a second. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that sends the frozen groundswells under it and spills the upper boulders in the sun. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that wants it down. Today, November 9th, Oakdale High is celebrating Veterans Day. This is 2 days before Veterans Day, or as Colonel Sheets pointed out, my mother reminds me, Armistice Day, which is November 11th. But today marks another military anniversary. Today is 33 years since the East Germans dismantled the Berlin Wall. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that wants it down. For Cold War veterans, the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 seemed a major turning point in world relations. The following summer, my civilian boss at Letterkenny Army Depot quipped, "Peace is hell." We spent a day giving out pink slips to over 400 civilian employees. Peace meant we could reduce the workforce. The end of the Cold War meant there was less need for M109, A6 Paladin howitzers, and 2.5-ton trucks. Little did we know that all of these layoffs would be rescinded the next day as Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, leading to Operation Desert Storm. How much has changed in the last 20 years? How much has changed in the last 10 years? Uniforms and weapon systems are different. Tactics have been transformed. Massive armor operations like the battle for Medina Ridge have become antiquated in a world that uses improvised explosive devices and drones. Military conflict, to borrow from John Nagel and David Kilcullen's books, has become a series of knife fights between the dragons and the snakes. Armies use cyber warfare and asymmetrical tactics to achieve victory. Military tactics are always in the process of evolving as technology evolves. Or are they? We just need to reflect on the past 9 months for the Russians and the Ukrainians to question that. As I look at our veterans assembled here, and I read through the list of Oakdale alumni who have served or are serving, I know some things have not changed in military history. And now I'm going to date myself. To borrow from the 1964 World's Fair Continental Life Insurance record. Yeah, my mother is still sane, and I'm surprised with the number of times I played it. We are still blessed with a military that has enough men and women who care, with enough love of freedom and enough deathless deeds and enough of the stuff that our nation needs. And for that, I'm most grateful. Last year, I asked everyone present to take time today and on Veterans Day to say a deceased veteran's name aloud to keep his or her memory alive. Please continue that tradition. Roger Thomas, Pearl Harbor survivor, thank you for your service.
Again, we thank Dr. Sheets and our veterans for their service and joining us today. We will continue with Caroline Patchers, Suhani Tandon, and Joshua Townsend. They're singing us a song.
Veterans can now be dismissed to a lunch upstairs. If you follow Dr. Scoder, I'm sure he would love to. Oh, he's getting